Most dental practice owners think that they know their overhead. They don't. They know a number that the accountant mentioned to them once, maybe at tax time, and that is not your overhead. That's a guess with a spreadsheet attached to it. And here's why this matters. If you do not know your true overhead, you do not know your break even. You don't even know what real production target you have. And every decision you are making, whether it's related to staffing, scheduling, or even to hire an associate, is made on the foundation of guesswork. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the practice overhead playbook that I built specifically for dental practice owners to get to 3 numbers that they probably never had before. Your true break-even number, what you need to produce to actually pay yourself properly, and what you need to produce to invest in growing this thing called a business. By the end of part 1, you're going to understand your practice financially in ways that most doctors never do. And in part 2, I'm going to hand you a calculator that does the math for you in 15 minutes. Let's get to it. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Simone Ellis. I'm a retired dentist and freedom strategist and the founder of the Freedom Framework. And I spent 20 years building a practice that ultimately I sold for multiple $1 million. And while I was running my practice with multiple providers, full schedule, and revenue tracing upwards of the $4 million mark, I did not know my real overhead percentage. I roughly knew what we collected, I knew what my accountant was telling me year end, but the actual number, the percentage that every dollar that was walking out of this door I made, I was estimating. And that estimating was costing me. So this playbook is what I wish I had in a year. So let's go through this. Part 1, why your overhead is the number that runs everything. All right, docs, so overhead is the total cost that's required to operate your practice before you pay yourself a single dollar. This is not just rent. This is not just your staff. This is totally everything. A healthy dental practice typically operates in a very specific range. Total operating overhead before a doctor's compensation should be about anywhere between the 50 to 60% range. So doctor's compensation is about 30 to 35, and your profit or reinvestment back into the business is about 10 to 15%. So on a $1 million practice, it's gonna look like this. If your overhead is about $550,000, then your doctor compensation should be about $300,000, and the profit and reinvestment should be about $150,000. That's a healthy practice. But here's what I see when I'm working with most of my doctors one-on-one. Most of them are running their practices at about 75 to 85% overhead, and the doctor really has no idea that that's the case. That means that for every dollar that you were collecting, you were keeping less than 25% before you even pay yourself. And this is why most people feel frustrated, because you're not running a business, you're running an expensive machine that occasionally pays you. Here's part 2, the expenses category, where everything goes. Before you can calculate your real overhead, you really have to look back at 12 months of financial data. I don't want you to just grab 1 month, because 1 month is gonna lie, but 12 months, it's gonna tell you the truth. And you're needing to get these documents. Go find your profit and loss statement, those accountants that you're paying every single month. I want you to pull 12 months of that. I want you to pull your payroll reports, your lab expenses, your dental supply invoices, your loan statements, your lease agreements, your marketing expenses, your software subscription, your equipment financing payments. And once you have all of these things, all these expenses categorized, you'll truly have what that looks like. Then you're gonna get your team payroll, and that's gonna look like within hygienists, assistants, your front desk, and your office managers. And that should land about 25 to 30% of collections. Let me give you guys some more math. Your dental supplies, it should be ranging about 5 to 7%. Your lab fees should be 6 to 10%. Your rent or your mortgage should be about 5 to 7%. Your marketing can be 3 to 5%. Professional services about 2 to 4%. And equipment technology about 3 to 5%. Now, those are the benchmarks, but I would like to kind of add a little bit of a caveat to that. For a lot of my doctors, I like marketing expenses to be 7 to 10% because most of them have never really marketed, and so we're trying to grow their business. And so when you look at Fortune 500 companies, a lot of them are using about a 7 to 10% marketing budget, and so I do encourage doctors to look at that. The other thing that I want to point out is that if you are doing high cosmetic procedures or a lot of Invisalign cases, things that have a very large lab bill, you want your accountant team to segment that out, because it's kind of hard to stay within a 5 to 7% lab range if you have very high ticket items. So there needs to be a separate line item for that. And again, these are just benchmarks. If your categories kind of range and one is significantly above these ranges, you may have either found a leak or you have to notate that, okay, maybe in my area, a certain category is a little bit higher. But the reality is that most doctors, until they do this exercise, they don't even know where the leaks exist or what their overhead even is. Now, if you're new to this channel and you're joining, I know this stuff may be a little boring. So here's another pro tip. Hire a virtual assistant to do this audit for you. Okay, if you feel like I hate looking at numbers, it gets me frustrated, hire a virtual assistant part-time so that you can have them pull that data for you and extrapolate that into a spreadsheet for you. But honestly, before you hire it or outsource it, I would personally take a look at it because I think it's important for you to understand what you're spending versus what you're collecting. Part 3, the numbers that you need. Once your expenses are categorized, you can calculate 3 numbers. And these are the 3 numbers that are gonna change how you run everything. Number 1, your overhead percentage. This is your total expenses divided by your total collections, and they equal your overhead percentage. It's a simple formula. Most doctors have never done it, but if you do this, you're gonna find out what your overhead percentage is. Number 2 is gonna be your break even. So break-even number is the minimum that your practice must produce just to keep the doors open. And this is before you even make your own dollar. That number is your total monthly overhead. Anything above it funds your doctor pay, right? And anything below it means that you're losing money on that month. If you don't even know what your break-even number is, you don't know what you're losing. From that number, you can finally get what your true production target number is. And I can't tell you enough how many doctors just come up with a gut feeling and like, yeah, this is what we should produce. Guys, we gotta be smarter than this. You have a whole doctorate degree. This is not a gut feeling. This is a math problem. So your true monthly production target should look like this. It's gonna be your monthly overhead plus your doctor's pay target, plus the growth investment cushion of the 5 to 10% that you want to see back into your business. That total divided by your clinical days is now going to give you your daily production number. So now your team isn't guessing and they know exactly what the day needs to produce, and you know exactly where that number came from, which is going to lead you to a lot of clarity, which is what I like my doctors to be. Now, if you're already inside my Freedom Framework vault, you've already seen this playbook, this calculator, and this implementation guide. And there's a dozen other tools that are built specifically for practice owners who are done guessing and really want to run their business like a CEO. And if you're not a part of the vault yet, don't worry. Part 2 of this video, the calculator walkthrough, is completely free. More on that in 1 minute. All right, so part 4 is the daily goal and the team alignment. Now, doctors, once you have your monthly production target and you've divided it by your clinical days, let me give an example. If you had $120,000 as your target and you divide that by 16 clinical days, that's going to give you about $7,500 per day. Now you're going to split that between your doctor's production and your hygiene production. A healthy dental practice, the doctor is producing about 65 to 70%, and then the hygienist is producing anywhere between 30 to 35%. So on a doctor's day that's trying to produce 7,500, that means the doctor needs to produce about 5,000 and the hygienist needs to produce about 2,500. Now your Monday morning huddles has this number. Your team is not guessing and your hygienist will have their target. And your front desk knows exactly what kind of day it needs to build. Doctors, I cannot emphasize enough that numbers create clarity and that clarity creates the leadership. And when you have leadership, that leadership is now what leads you to freedom. Y'all, this is not a slogan. This is exactly what happens in the practices I work with one-on-one. One of my doctors out in California did not know her break-even numbers. And when I was asking her what she wanted to pay herself, she had no clue. 6 months after we ran these numbers, she was able to restructure her whole schedule and her whole take-home pay by 30% without doing any extra work. It's just that she knew her numbers. Docs, I want to be straight up with you about something. The doctors that I work with on a one-on-one process, the doctors who actually go through this process and actually know their overhead, their break-even numbers, build their practice around real numbers. And by doing that, they are growing their practices on an average of 36.7%. And it's not because they're working so much harder or adding so many different types of procedures. It's because they stop making decisions in the dark. And that's the difference between running a practice and leading one. All right, so here's what I want you to do right now. First, I need you to go watch part 2. It's a full screen shared walkthrough of the practice overhead calculator. It's 6 tabs. It's all auto-calculated. You plug in your numbers. The system does the rest. The video is linked right here. Second, download the playbook. The link is in the description. It's free and it's a document that I just walked you through. Print it out, work through it. You'll know your numbers. And third, if you want the full calculator, the implementation guide, the live monthly sessions, and the community of practice owners that are actually doing the work, that's what my Freedom Framework Vault is. The link is in the description. Come check it out. I'm going to see you in part 2. Peace out.